What's up, everybody? It's George Wood, and I'm here with another episode of the Sober Truth Podcast. And let me tell you, this week I am so excited because we have Dr. Amanda Sharp with us. She's been with us a couple times, but now she's a Harvard doctor, so she's got other things to do with her time. But she graced us with her presence to have this discussion about the state of recovery, the care that is given to those that are really struggling, and options for those that feel like they have none. She also works with SAMSA, which is the predominant organization in the country that works with all forms of addiction and mental health issues as far as educating society and providing resources. So she is a wealth of knowledge. I hope you enjoy this conversation because I know that I did. So please leave comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe, and make sure you share this out to others so that they see these videos. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy. So, Dr. Amanda Sharp, what are you up to these days?
Oh, gosh. Okay, I'm up to a lot of things. Well, so my primary gig at this point is I'm now officially a Fed. I work for the man. No. I work for SAMSA, and that's not Samsung. A lot of people, I say SAMSA.
Yeah, I just bought one of the new Samsung.
No, and they're like,
the
I
other
didn't
day.
know Samsung was into behavioral health. And I was like, they fund all of it. They're like, oh, I had no idea. And they thought I was talking about the cell phone company the whole time. No, SAMSA is the Substance Abuse Mental Health Administration for the United States. So it's under HHS, Health and Human Services.
So it is the man.
It literally is the man. Yeah.
Nice.
And you know what, though? Like, I went into it. It's been new for me because, for all my followers out there, I was in academia. I was doing research. I was in community-based research and involved in like interventions and implementation of those interventions, et cetera, development. And I went into the government thinking, okay, this is going to be bigger, and it is bigger in lots of ways because I'm thinking on a more system scale. But it's also it's a big ship. And by that, it takes a lot to move it, So I think, it's been a learning experience for me to sort of see what's happening on the inside of the machine and trying to navigate sort of, well, where can we make those little changes in order to redirect that ship?
So is what you do with them, it's nationwide, not just locally?
Oh yeah, it's the entire United States. I serve a couple of different roles. So I actually work within CSAT, all sorts of acronyms, right? So SAMSA, CSAT. CSAT is the Center for Substance Abuse Treatment. So it's where treatment for behavioral health is funded. So we have I oversee mostly grants that are MAP PDOA grants, which are medication-assisted treatment grants.
Okay. And you help with the disbursement of the grants?
Yeah, we'll help with the review process, with the writing of various grants, some of the others, right, with oversight of those grantees. So when somebody receives those monies, like I'm one of the people that, you get to talk to every month to figure out whether you're doing the stuff that you said you would. So there's a lot of accountability involved in that. I also serve as a subject matter expert. So, a lot of my background is around person-centered care and the delivery of services in a way that, that sort of enhances empathy and non-judgment and all those things that we love to see by our health providers to people who are either in active recovery or thinking about it or not in it.
I think one of the things that we originally were drawn to each other is this idea of person-centered care. And could you give a brief explanation of what that is? Not you and I probably think, oh, we know what that means. Everybody does. But I don't know if everybody really understands what person-centered care actually means as opposed to how a lot of institutions do their care.
Okay, so my sort of go-to case example is cigarette smoking, right? We'll just use that because it's an easy, accessible example. We all know that cigarettes are bad for you, right? We shouldn't smoke. We know why. Everybody, it's sort of universal knowledge. When you go to the doctor, what do? They tell you, oh, you smoke. You shouldn't smoke. These are the ways you can quit smoking. This is why it's bad for you. They're telling you information a lot of the time you already know, telling you what to do about it, etc. you might come in and in your experience, you're like, okay, I've actually tried to quit smoking before and it's really hard for me. And right now, I just lost my mom and my dog just died and I have all these stressors in my life. I started a new job and my boss is really strict about taking breaks, but my boss is a smoker too. And so sometimes we get to sneak out together and go, and it just like is a facilitator of my stress right now, right? It's a coping mechanism. It's something that I need right now. We have these reasons for doing behaviors that we know are not necessarily good for us.
Mm-hmm.
So how would a person-centered approach, when you go to that doctor's office and you've been coughing or you have some signs of COPD or something, and your doctor's like, you really need to stop, instead of demeaning you, instead of telling you what to do, how can your physician have a conversation with you about, yes, let's acknowledge what those benefits are for you. It's a de-stressor. It's something you've done for a long time. It's hard to quit. But let's talk about what the benefits for you would be too. And having a conversation that is more centered around what you want as an individual rather than what your doctor wants for you. Mm-hmm. And that can be applied in substance use treatment field too. Especially, we're so quick to judge people. We're so quick to, as I say, the collective, we like providers of care in general, right? In a traditional setting, so quick to be like, oh, this is bad. Using drugs is bad. Your history is bad. You're bad. Let's point out all those things. But like, how can we shift that dialogue to be one that's more about accepting where you're at? Mm-hmm. One of my favorite quotes, and I don't remember who it was, and I probably butcher it anyway. But
was it me?
Yes, totally. It's when somebody feels accepted for who they are and what they do, no matter how bad, how unhealthy, they finally feel the freedom to acknowledge, to even consider an alternative.
Yep.
So instead of having somebody's defenses come up and be like, oh, well, you're judging me. Yeah, I have to defend my status quo and who I am. They can let that down, and start to feel like, oh, okay, well, great. You're giving me the freedom now to actually think about what I want for myself.
That's how George helped me stop being a serial killer. He accepted me
He's so good at that.
for myself. And, we started working from there.
We did.
So I've been like 5 months
Congratulations.
without any bodies.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you, brother.
It is so, but it is such, I don't know. It's one of those things that we hear and we think, yeah, that's common sense. Mm-hmm. But we don't realize just how much all the brokenness, the major ones, the big 3, right? Or whatever, addiction, mental health, prison, stuff like that, right? We just immediately say the obvious things, right? Mm-hmm. Why do you keep committing crime? It's a huge one, right? Like, especially when you live in an impoverished neighborhood like mine, it's like, well, why do these people keep doing these things? Well, maybe they don't have any resources to do anything else. Okay. Would we ever consider that? Or, so person-centered care to me is the exact thing that, for me, I think is missing in so many aspects of life, period. Because we just want people to be we want them to be the thing they do, not realizing that the thing they do is just a subset of who they are, and that who they are is the experiences that they've been through.
If I had a magic wand to just make everybody sort of adhere to these ideals of person-centered care, I would. I guess I want to acknowledge, though, that it is a hard thing to do. Mm-hmm. Like, having complete acceptance for somebody also requires that you relinquish control. And I think that, especially like one of my side gigs, I am still a teaching associate at Harvard in their psychiatry department.
Yeah, I love that.
And
I told her, I said, you've got to get the fact that you still work at Harvard in the interview. It gives us credibility.
So impressive. Yeah. They're smarter now.
We are smarter by proximity of someone that works at Harvard.
Okay, but I just finished a training and sort of doing an ongoing supervision session with some of the clinical staff in the department. And, every time I finish a training with providers, there's always an aha moment, but there always is this like deep empathy that I, as a trainer and as somebody that's trying to, take my magic wand and spread empathy everywhere, is that it's hard to do, when they have these they have these stipulations within their clinical settings, within their reimbursement schedules, within the documentation they have to provide, within the infiltration through the medical education system too, of like, you need to do this and your job is to diagnose and fix, right? If we're being told over and over again, you have to fix, where is the freedom for the person to fix themselves in that? You know, so it's a hard thing to implement because it takes a complete shift of roles, right? Where instead of the person who's coming into detox being like, I'm surrendering my control, you help me, it's I'm coming in, I'm helping myself, and how do the providers around them support that idea rather than taking on the onus their own. You know, it has to be a shift in power.
One of the it kind of sounds like George is talking and what you're saying. It reminds me of Plato's cave, you know, where people, you know, are all they know is the shadow on the wall. And it's somebody can come in and say, hey, there's more out there. There's all of this. You should do this. And most people will reject that because this is what they're familiar with. And so it's coming into that with them and then recognizing the humanity in that individual and then slowly but surely kind of steering the ship in a different direction. You know, it's especially for impoverished communities or people who have just lived in broken homes. They don't understand that there's another way. There's an actual whole world out there, and it's not just the shadows on the wall. So it's about revealing to them the possibility that there's more. Over a period of time, and that there's another way to go about this.
The onus doesn't need to be on the provider, the clinician, the social worker, the whoever is doing the helping to do the actual hard work, right? We're not holding their hand and walking home with them, but they are the cue to that change. They can serve as the impetus to that, to shine that light, like you're saying, like, oh, let me see a different way. Let me tell you that there is a different way. Let me give you information if you want it. Right. Let's talk about, you know, what you want for yourselves. And a component in the person-centered care approach that I teach is motivational interviewing. There's this component of reflections. And I always like to remind people that reflections when we're talking to somebody is not just regurgitating what they say or parroting it back, but we actually it truly is in that meaning of holding up a mirror to somebody else. Like, how often does somebody who is impoverished, living in chaos, struggling with their addiction, you know, how often do they get that introspective moment to reflect to somebody else about themselves, like to really take that moment and feel heard and feel like they can then hear themselves in turn, you know?
You know, we were talking about this the other day, the continuum and where people are in their life path or where they're going in their journey. And a lot of people work for the outcome. They're going in, I got to get this person better. I've got to, and so they neglect the actual person because they're more concerned with the outcome of how they're going to, you know, get this person well. And sometimes we have to recognize that this could be a 20-year process for this individual, and you're at year 2. Are you still going to work with the same enthusiasm, the same care, the same determination? Meaning that what you're pouring into that person is just as valuable now because you understand in a continuum of things that one day it'll not only take root, but it'll grow in that person's life. And so when I started thinking about like that, that's when I stopped being so concerned with the notches on my belt and how I could, you know, look what I've done for this person, but more concerned with the information that I was empowering the individual with. What kind of seeds am I sowing into their life? And so when you look at it from that perspective, not only that, it takes the pressure off the other individual to perform for you. Hey, we're just having a conversation. Let's talk.
Yeah, it removes that hierarchy of expectation of what are you doing for me? What am I doing for you? Like, and allows that space.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because there is something about, you know, working with people directly and when they do buy into you, they do feel like this obligation that I don't want to let you down. And I know for me, being a counselor and a pastor for years, people say, I'm like, don't say that because just showing up is all I care about. You know, don't worry about letting me down because then once again, it's shifted, which for me, and especially when, you know, Brian is speaking of a friend of ours that's working with somebody that is a lifetime heroin addict and just me reinforcing like reminder, this may not go well. but what you're doing is planting a seed
Mm-hmm.
that may go well in the future. So don't get into this, like, oh, I know George and he wrote the Uncovery, and I know Brian and he's been there. And so we got this. I don't know if you got this or not. This may totally go horrible.
Well, and that's the hard part of acceptance is that relinquishment, that it might not turn out how you want it to turn out. You okay, Brian?
Yeah. It's okay.
He just moved him so much.
It's moved with compassion. It's okay. Hey, this is just a conversation. But I think for me, you know, especially working with, you're working with a lot of the, you know, the professional communities of medical and mental health, and me working with pastors. And so, you know, working with the Sober Truth Project full time now, and wanting to help churches and church leaders understand how to walk. Working with pastors, and the big thing with the medical profession, it's all about, okay, we got grants, we got to fulfill, we have, you know, insurance, and so this person-centered care is nice, but I got quotas and things. But then you work in the pastoral community where they feel, and you know this because your dissertation was on faith communities, I don't just have time to work with somebody, right? And so I've started saying this, and I don't think it's going well. I'm not being asked back very often. Then you need to have a smaller congregation, because the idea of like, I don't have time to deal with that. And I'm like, well, then you just need less people, because until you have time, you're not actually doing what Jesus called you to do, which is to be compassionate and walk alongside people. So I've got to figure out a better way to word that, because nobody wants to hear. I just said have less people to care for. But what we're really talking about is a change in the way that we look at what we do, because either it's a quota that I need in order to get paid, or it's a notch in my belt to feel better, like I'm good at this. It's still the wrong thinking, because the emphasis should be on the person we're trying to help, and we're trying to see as a human being. And I think that we end up in these systems because it's just easier to have systems. It's easier to say, you know, you smoke, that's why you don't feel good. You know, it's like, it's easier to make everything about a black and white checklist of expectations rather than who is the person behind the person I'm trying to help.
Yeah. Well, it makes it a lot harder to point to something and say, I did that, you know, or say I fixed that person, or to keep tallies, you know, for your own sake and maybe for theirs. I don't know. Again, there's that pressure to do that. It comes from a place, certainly, I mean, there's external pressures, but it is internal pressure to want to serve people, to want to help people, and to think that you're doing it in the right way or in the best way that you can. And there's power in that too. But I think if you're doing something over and over again and it's not working, we want to try something new. And that's always what I encourage folks. It's like, well, maybe instead of doing it this way, let's try something else. When I often, I think I hear it the most with when I work with police officers. I do a lot of work with police officers who are involved in like behavioral health interventions or street teams, et cetera, right? And what I hear in my trainings around, well, how do we change our communication tactics? How do we, help to engage people in these services that actually we're leading them towards? And often I hear, well, I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. I didn't become a police officer to be a counselor. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. Why did you become a police officer? Well, but I want to help people. Okay, well, so how do you want to help people? And when we ask those questions and we get into at the end of the day, I can't think of any scenario, no matter what your role is, if you're trying to serve people, where empathy wouldn't come into play, where acceptance wouldn't come into play, where non-judgment wouldn't come into play, where support for the other person's autonomy wouldn't come into play. And that doesn't mean that, your pastors that have these giant congregations, that they need to, they're going to have every minute of every day filled with one-on-one sessions with somebody, doing whatever, but it can be a way of being. And it's a way of just being with people, of communicating with people. And I think as we start to shift that, whether it's in a congregation, it's in a police force, it's in a hospital system, it's in a treatment setting, whatever, as we start to shift that idea that we are relinquishing control. We are shifting to a more empathetic framework. We are allowing the person to have more autonomy, make more choices for themselves, and the freedom to make those decisions. That it shifts the culture.
Mhm.
So maybe instead of telling the congregations you need to be a smaller congregation, maybe it's like, okay, well, stop trying to control everything.
Yeah.
Let's like make it part of our culture and climate within our congregation to be this way with people, to be an accepting place, so that, you know what, they don't have to just talk to me. They could talk to you or you or you or you too. And they know that they're going to be here and be supported.
Yeah, that's good. Make a mental note of that one. That's a good one. I got to ask you a question. So harm reduction, okay, which would be part of person-centered care, right? Would you line the two? Harm reduction being, I would look at it, I kind of describe it as, it's less of the other harm the person's doing, right? So if a person's doing this one thing that could kill them, harm reduction is, how about we do this instead and they stay alive?
Kind of like smoke weed versus heroin. Do heroin. I mean,
it's on an extreme level, yes.
Yeah,
Just
simplified.
Simplified.
Maybe we smoke our meth instead of injecting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One step at a time.
Yeah.
I've been in recovery from sex addiction for many years. And, one thing I appreciate about sex addiction is the idea of bottom lines, where it's like, it's not about abstinence, it's about a bottom line. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying not to do the thing that kills me. And this is a little bit less. And now I'd never heard that until I went into my first SA meeting, as opposed to an AA meeting where if you have any substance in your body whatsoever, you've relapsed.
Yeah.
And I quickly left AA. And once again, as I always say, I'm not against AA. It just didn't work for me. And if it works for you, then keep doing what works. But the idea of complete and total abstinence is just never something that has been good for me. Maybe because of my personality or whatever. But I like the idea that, okay, if I have a Red Bull, it doesn't count against me because I've put something in my system that changes my mood. It elevates my mood. Now I've relapsed.
Yeah.
So the idea of a bottom line being a sense of harm reduction. Now, harm reduction is in the news a lot lately, in particular because of, at least locally, because of fentanyl strips. And I messaged you last week and I said, Amanda, why are fentanyl strips illegal? And this is not the official opinion or status of SAMSA. But you said because Florida is stupid. No, you actually said dumb.
Dumb.
Florida is dumb. But could you help me understand why something that could save people's lives is illegal?
Well, I do want to say that since you asked me that question, I moved away from Florida and came back, so I was not up to date on the current legislation around fentanyl test strips. And it did pass Senate in May. And it will be it passed with 100% yays, no nays. And now we're just waiting on DeSantis to sign it into action. And they say that it will be active July 1st.
So what do you even mean there? So
meaning that fentanyl test strips. So the reason
why
that
were they illegal?
I'm not sure. I knew when George brought it up that there was some kind of something's going on in the back half from a lobbyist or something, some kind of policy that has to be written. And so I figured that there was some underlying conditions. I in my mind, I couldn't rationalize why they would just knock something that's so beneficial. And so what I hear you saying is that they're actually moving into a more controlled setting of
so they will be legal in Florida.
Yeah.
Hopefully in the next month. is what the current.
But why would
is.
something like that be illegal? I'm just trying to.
Yeah, let me think about the nicest way to say this.
I think it's some backroom dealing and lobbying.
Well, it's illegal because
it definitely is. But like, if we think about our drug policies in general in Florida, I mean, the illegalization of fentanyl test strips is just representative of all of the other sort of pushback that we've received around syringe exchanges, around, even around like legalization of specific drugs, around other sort of funding mechanisms for harm reduction, sort of oriented programs. It's been very challenging in the state to get the support. There are grassroots organizations. There's certainly the problem is prevalent, and harm reduction as a service and as also a way of being with people has been proven. There is evidence that supports it. So I think that when it comes to why would it be illegal, I think there's a lot of fear there. It's the same idea of what I described as the traditional medical approach and a person-centered approach, where it feels like, oh, well, we're just enabling somebody to use more drugs. If we give them clean syringes, then they're just going to use those. Okay, yeah, well, so it's always hard to get somebody to answer directly. So what would you rather them do?
Mm-hmm.
And they say, well, just not use. And they say, well, that's kind of an unrealistic expectation, that just because, we saw just say no to drugs doesn't work. That is certainly not evidence-based. So when we say, well, so what, if they're going to keep using, you just want them to what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You want them to die.
Yeah.
You would rather them. I've heard from police officers, unfortunately, where they're like, well, maybe we should just stop showing up to overdoses because it would certainly unclog our hospital systems, and we wouldn't have to keep doing this, right? And it's disappointing. It's sad, and I'm not saying that that's all of them. I've certainly worked with lots of police officers that are very in support and and collaborative. But I think it's it's this idea that, well, if we give somebody fentanyl test strips, then are they seeking out fentanyl? Is that what they're doing now? Yeah. And it's sort of this like very fearful and quite honestly ignorant perspective, I think, where it's the same thing with Narcan. Like, oh, they just keep Narcan-ing each other. Being Narcan sucks. Like nobody wants to be Narcan. To overdose and then be Narcan. Like you get sick, your high's gone. Like it's awful. Nobody wants to do that. So I think when people are making these arguments, it just demonstrates that they're not working from that place of empathy. Yeah, right? They're working from that place of, I want to tell you what to do because this is what works for me, not because this is what works for you.
And then how do they sell that in the media? It's kind of like this. It's going to be a contrast here, but if I told you, the Taliban were downtown Tampa right now, protesting or whatever, that'd sound pretty scary to the average person. The Taliban. But in actuality, if we translated that into English, it's a group of students. But we use these ways of presenting things that dehumanize the whole experience or the whole situation, the problem, so that other people will side with us out of ignorance.
Yes,
and that's what's going on. It's a lack of, like you said, empathy. It's a lack of understanding. It's a lack of, or it's a total ball of just junk ignorance that's being perpetuated by false narratives and people who really just don't care because they have no personal experience. Now, let their daughter or their son, have an issue at a party, and now all of a sudden they're an advocate. Instead of approaching it from a place of humility and being like, well, let me first seek to understand what's going on here. Yeah. That's just not happening because everything's so hot-headed. Everybody just wants to be the next viral hit media piece or whatever, to be the tough guy, that we've lost the humanity in it.
Yeah.
And so, I know that was a big word salad there, but
no, that was beautiful. I couldn't have said it better. I think the humility component is so big because, what's the God phrase?
The God phrase?
That's the thing.
Blessed by the best.
No, but for the grace of God.
Oh, but for the grace.
Oh, I love that. That's one of my favorites.
And I think that.
Oh man, if we practice that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
If it wasn't for the mercy of just God and the forgiveness, if we could just take a little bit of that the whole understanding, that concept, and apply, like, dude, to whom much, who's been forgiven much, a lot of times they'll love much, because they get from a place of understanding. Like, I was a piece of crap, bro. Like I was living in debauchery. And the fact that I have a second chance at life and the ability to think and to pay my bills and to have a family and to provide and to have opportunities. I don't deserve that. I mean, at a human level, we do deserve it because we're, everybody deserves to have a good quality life. But based off of my choices and actions, especially with legislatures and people that are in politics right now, I should be in prison. I should be thrown away. I should be cast out. But thank God for mercy.
Yeah.
Thank God for mercy. And if we walk with that encapsulated in our hearts somehow, and we're able to be governed by that, so many people would find freedom.
Because if that could be the norm rather than I should have been cast off. I should have been incarcerated. I should have been, like, if the norm can be, you know what? I can also be a contributing member of society and thriving, and that being the norm. Everybody has the capacity for that. Everybody does. And until we start to really see that and embrace that and live by that,
Yeah. And, I think you and I first started talking in like 2018. Okay. So even since 2018 till now, I think when we first met and first spent time together and so talking about the Sober Truth Project and what it could be and how I wanted to be, this idea of being a platform online to educate has never been more important than right now. Because even in that time, battles that weren't fought online now are because of the ability to go viral with a video, that because of like politicians, over the since 2016 have figured out forget policy, just hit people with hot points.
Oh yeah.
Stir their emotions and then they vote.
Oh yeah.
And that's both parties. I'm not picking a party. I'm just saying they figured out the secret sauce we used to actually have policy conversations, and not that I remember because I was high all the time.
Did we really?
But I don't know. I was high.
I like to think that.
I like that we think
back in the day.
Back in things when things were more boring.
Yeah.
But now things don't have to be boring because you can have some kid on TikTok sell your like high points, and a politician can blow up and be known, and points of view can be blown up and be known, but nobody really knows what those policy.
It's reactivity rather than actual thoughtful responsiveness. And
so we have to fight the ignorance. So it's like ignorance with awareness is something I've been thinking of. It's like we got to fight the ignorance with awareness. And one of the areas, and this is maybe we're not equipped to talk about it today, but Proposition 110 in Portland. And I'll be the first to admit, like, I was very happy when it won. Okay. I do realize that it has not went well, but if you actually get into, and you're from Oregon, so, but if you actually get into why Proposition 110 hasn't worked, and it's easy for everybody to show Portland and the streets of Portland and to say, see, it doesn't work. But it's like, here's the thing, when it all happened, they based it off of Portugal, they based it off of Switzerland and said, these countries are doing this, the Netherlands, and it's working. We want to do that. But they only went halfway. So they made Proposition 110 happen, but they never took the money that they were spending on police force and all of that and criminalization and said, we need to open up a bunch of rehabs. We need to open up a bunch of therapy institutes. We need to put all that into play. So you can't just say, here's something legal, but then not put the other part in. They never put the rehabilitation part in. And so now the city needs to be like blown up. It's so crazy over there, right? And so that is the ignorance, because now people can take that and they can say, this is why it doesn't work. But meanwhile, it's like, no, wait, let me stop you on that, because we don't know whether it works or not. We just know what happened there hasn't worked so far, but it's because they haven't implemented any of the caring part of the whole policy that they were supposed to. Because they were supposed to introduce housing, rehabilitation, Job Corps. They were supposed to put into play all of these things that they have done none of it. And so, of course, it didn't work. I mean, you took a bunch of people that are poor, destitute, and hopeless and said, now you can do your drugs legally. And you thought that was going to get things better, but you've got to give people a reason to hope, right? And without that side of hope, then then what's the point? Because I know I've been strung out on drugs. And if I didn't have a reason to hope, then, and it can't just be some, flaccid, yeah, here, you should hope, your hope's in God. But meanwhile, I got to go. So you figure that out on your own and leave you in like in a war zone. So
yeah, it feels like a cop out.
It is. And that's actually in scripture, by the way, that in the book of James, where he goes, if you go and tell a hungry person, go be fed, be well, and walk away, well, that's not the will of God.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So even in scripture, it says, don't do that. Like, you can't say, oh, you're homeless, I hope you find shelter. Goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
You're hungry, I hope you get some food. Goodbye. That's in the book of James, chapter 2. It's all about that. So how do we implement the policies and procedures have to be adequate to the changes we hope to make in the legal sector, right? Mm-hmm. Something controversial. This Friday, I am sitting down with the founder of Redwood Myco. He is a young guy who is a psychology major. He started a company that does microdosing. Okay. As a point of therapy and harm reduction. Very excited to sit down and have this conversation with him. But obviously this is something like people be like, you want to do what? You want to microdose people with psilocybin? It's like, I think it could work. Okay. But what are some of your thoughts?
That you think it could work. It's like, there's a lot of research happening right now.
There's a lot of research on that. So I just kind of set a bunch of different points.
Well, before you move on,
and I was gonna open the floor to you two to say, like, what do you guys think of any of the things I just said?
Well, I want to go back and talk about Portland. Number one, that's near and dear.
He's from Portland too.
You are?
I grew up.
Yes.
Oh well, I did a lot of my homeless teenage years in Portland, Oregon. So I've seen the drug epidemic. But it's at the end of the day, the word kept coming to me, or the phrase, I should say, Pyrrhic victory. You'll get the victory, but they're not going to give you the support infrastructure that you need in order to accomplish it, because they want you to fail. So it's a setup for failure so that they can point their fingers. You got countries like Switzerland. They used to be socialist, but they moved away from that. But they understood that what they took away from that was, people are more important than capital gain. It's people, or the welfare of their nation is more important than how much money that they can exploit and make off of people. And so, but over here we have our shoestrings tied together. Mm-hmm. We are schizophrenic as a nation. We could just diagnose this all day. Personality disorder, anxiety disorder, all kinds of just craziness and madness. But the point is, you said it best when you said we need to fight ignorance, but more so, instead of fighting ignorance, we just need to spread awareness as much as possible. Yeah. Just, leaflets from a plane drop, just dropping it down, metaphorically speaking here.
In case anybody does that, we had nothing to do with it.
The Bible says, in one of the great wisdom scriptures, it says that some of the seeds fell on the road, some fell on the wayside, the rocks, the thorns, but some fell on solid ground, or solid soil, good soil. And that's who we focus on. We scatter as much seed as possible.
Yeah.
And then slowly but surely, because there's one of the, I think, philosophers in Greece or somebody says, you got to be willing to plant trees that you'll never sit under the shade of. Mm-hmm. And so we got to be looking like that, because so much, this nation, social media, we're geared towards me first. Right now, I need to be to my haircut appointment. Get out of my way. Mm-hmm. That's the way we're conditioned. And you know what? I would go work at, plant this garden, but what's it going to benefit me? Mm-hmm. We've done this to ourselves, and we're all at fault. Each generation blaming the last, when we're all in this together. Yeah. And so, in a perfect world, we all kumbaya, come together and work it out. There's always going to be corruption. There's always going to be people who are in it for their own purposes and stuff. And all we can do is be those people who go in and hopefully some of the seeds, which I believe will, fall on that solid ground, and then more, and we multiply. And then we shift the balance over a period of time.
Yeah.
And that to me is the only solution.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
I like
you think
her
about force,
magic wand thing, but.
Well, I guess like in
Do
a
you want
real
to pause real quick and come back with that thought? Because I promise you could check your computer. It's 11:50.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
I
wait.
don't want you to lose that
But,
energy.
Don't
but
lose
my
it.
Hold on,
thought.
stop for a second. Hold on. 5, 4, 3, 2. Go.
Go.
I can go.
No. Go with your thought.
You go with your
my
thought.
thought?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
I
Okay,
wanted to
okay.
pause so we'd have a little bit of
Oh.
room between you getting out. All right. That's what I knew was going to happen.
Okay, I know what my thought was. Hold on. Yeah, okay, let me finish this thought and then if we take another pause. Okay. I think that the real life magic wand is experience and it's connection. We talk about how, somebody could be, anti-harm reduction, anti-syringe exchange, anti-Narcan, and then, their daughter overdoses because they did a bump of cocaine with some fentanyl in it at a party last weekend.
Lord.
So now how do they feel? Oh, now they get the urgency of it. But it doesn't have to get to that point. It doesn't have to be, you need to suffer so that you understand the suffering of others. Like, I think that there's means to develop understanding for the suffering of others without necessarily feeling the downsides of that suffering yourself. I think that the impetus has to be greater than the selfishness for maintaining our own little bubble, right? We're so concerned with, I don't want a homeless shelter across the street, and I don't want to have a syringe exchange, mobile van down the road from my house. Like, who's that going to bring in? And what will the neighbors think, right? Like, we have to get outside of that bubble and try to compel people to understand that the urgency for this goes beyond what the fake norm of comfort. And that I say fake intentionally because it's not real. This is happening everywhere, but people are trying to be in denial about it. And I think that if we can, that's the one piece that we as humans are, uniquely equipped to do, is to connect with people, right? Like, if we can tell those stories, if we can share what our lived experience is with others, if we can, every single person that I've ever taken on a tour of a syringe exchange, like, even if they were a little bit like, oh, I don't know, they get there and they're like, oh, this isn't just about handing out needles to people. Yeah. This is about connecting with people. This is people helping other people. And when they see that in action and they see the humanity that's present there, that's when you get the aha moment. And I think, like, giving people, awareness, cool. Education works to an extent,
right?
But awareness, like you're saying, the feeling awareness, not the cerebral awareness. Yeah. The feeling awareness is that's where the change happens.
Awareness and human connection, community, the uncovery.
Yeah.
Sorry for the shameless plug.
Yeah.
It's literally. So it's that's where the money is, and you can just stand on that.
Money, metaphorically speaking, money.
Yeah. Metaphorical money. Although I'm not opposed to physical money. You can donate right now by calling. No, our call centers are open. We'll send you a handkerchief with George's sweat. It's anointing. So it's what was I going to say? Dang, bro, it happened.
See?
No, the human body. Got it. The human body. It's so fascinating to see how the universe God has cultivated this planet, humans, the diversity of life, and all the intricacies and everything like that, to where we all share a common experience. We can both look at that cup and say, "Oh, that's black." We learned that was black, but how do we all simultaneously see the colors the same way? There's variances and stuff like that based off of genetics and things. But the point is, when you stop and do something kind, it's selfless. Why does nature reward you? Why do you feel so good and so empowered to help your fellow man? Why is it that when you see somebody maybe get in a car crash, your initial reaction is to whip the car over, get out, come what may? It could be PTSD. You could happen on a scene that's just horrible. I've had that happen, right? So, but you just do. What is that's inside of us? And it's about unlocking that in each individual so that they can really exercise that, because it's a great reward. Just like sex is a great reward. Eating is a great reward. Our bodies let us know, good job. When you help your fellow man, good job, or woman. So I think it's about pointing people to that, and then helping them see through that lens of compassion. Because I'm telling you, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like that human connection, and actually, just doing the ministry that you've done, walking alongside of people. When you see that aha moment, and when you see the light come on, and all of a sudden it starts clicking for that individual, it's almost too much for one person to handle. You're just like, oh man, this is so amazing. This is so wonderful. Where do I place this? You almost have to have God there, just like, Lord, this is all yours, because I can't handle this. This will make my ego go to the top.